Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News live from our studio here at Desawe in Accra. My name is Martin Aseidu Dartey. Coming up for the next 30 minutes, Chief of Police George Alex Mensah, one of the police officers at the center of alleged plot to oust the IGP, describes IGP George Ekufu-Dampare as the worst IGP in the history of the country.
For the 31 years that I've been in the service, I can tell you he's the worst IGP we've ever had.
Also coming up, former Supreme Court Judge Professor Kofi Dateba calls for the remodeling of Ghana's legal education system. And later in the bulletin, the National Petroleum Authority, NPA, begins pilot implementation of the National Cylinder Recirculation Model today. Details of all these and more for the next 30 minutes. This is Midday News on 3FM. My name is Martin Aseidu Dartey. Details of the stories now, and we are starting from developments in Parliament, where one of the police officers at the center of the alleged plot to oust the IGP, COP George Alex Mensah, has described IGP Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare as the worst IGP in the history of the country. He told the committee on Friday that he has had several opportunities to tell him about his leadership shortcomings. The committee has commenced the second day of probing the senior police officer. Here is COP George Alex Mensah taking his turn with the committee in Parliament.
Thank you very much. The clarification goes like this. If you are a police officer and you are aggrieved for one thing or the other about happenings in the service, what is the procedure?
Number Chair, the procedure is for the police officer to report to his immediate boss, for his immediate boss to forward it, and finally gets to the IGP. That's the procedure.
Thank you very much. That is the generic procedure. Let me be a bit specific. If you are a member of POMAP and you think that there are things that the Inspector General of Police is doing.
Remember, can you give it the full meaning, because some abbreviations will be lost on
Thank
us.
you. If you are a member of the Police Management Board, where the IGP is a member chair, and there are things happening within the police service that you are not happy, and it's a unitary command, what is the procedure?
Number Chair, as I said, it refers to all police officers, whether POMAP or what. Your first is to report to your immediate boss, even if what the immediate boss is doing is what you don't want.
Just to remind you about the fact that you impressed me yesterday when you said you are a principled person.
All right, so that is one of the MPs, Lanchini Tobu, who was actually taking his turn in questioning the COP George Alex Mensah, who is taking his turn again on the second day of his appearance before the ad hoc committee. Let's go to the phone lines now and speak to Duke Mensah Opoku, who is monitoring this for us. Duke, good afternoon. Thank you for your time. What more can you tell us about this committee's hearing?
Martin, I can tell you today, now that as the committee has adjourned hearings for 1 hour, 30 minutes, that is, it went on break about 30 minutes ago, around 11:30. And they will come back at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Now, this has become necessary because the lawyers for COP, Alexander George Mensah, made a request for, in fact, he himself, under questioning, made a request that he would want the committee, or he would want the committee to grant them the permission to take some time off to go and listen to the audio and compare it to the transcripts that they have. This is because it got to a point in time in the hearing where consistently there were questions related to whether the tape was authentic or not. He says that he had heard voices that sounds like his.
We seem to have lost that connection to Duke Mensah Opoku, who is our correspondent, giving us an update of the ad hoc committee of Parliament's second day of meeting. COP George Alex Mensah, who, amongst other things, has described the current IGP as the worst in the history of the police service, has also gone on to say that he's had a number of occasions to tell the IGP his disagreements with how his leadership style and the police service is concerned. But according to him, a number of his suggestions have fallen on deaf ears. So he also raised questions about the authenticity of the transcription of the audio voice that leaked into the public domain. You'd recall that on Monday, when the first individual who was among those who were having that conversation, that is Bugri Nabu, appeared before the committee, he confirmed that he actually recorded the conversation with the intent to play it to the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, so he can make the necessary changes if need be. But it looks as though these other gentlemen, the officer, that is COP George Alex Mensah, who was with Bugri Nabu in his office where the recording was done, has come up to vehemently question the authenticity of the recording or of the audio, and says that he believes that this is doctored. So we would definitely see what else has been going on in Parliament if we do make the right connection to Duke Mensah Opoku when he joins us on the line again for a quick update of what's happening in Parliament. But there has actually been some sort of a back and forth between the chair of the committee, that is Honorable Atachia, and COP George Alex Mensah and his lawyer, on the basis that they have sought to even question the evidence that this committee has. Committee has brought the audio. He questioned the authenticity of it. They've transcribed the entire audio, brought it to them. They've also questioned and said that there's a likelihood that it's not the exact conversation that took place between him and the Bugri Nabu. Then the chair of the committee told him that you've been asking for a copy of this. What is the guarantee that if you are given a copy, you wouldn't rather go and tamper with it and say that yours is right and ours is wrong? So there's been that banter or lack of consensus between the chair of the committee and the council of COP George Alex Mensah and George Alex Mensah himself. It was one of the reasons that the sitting has adjourned, and it's that when they do come back from the adjournment, they are likely to have now listened fully and gone through the transcription, and based on that, further questions will be put to Alex Mensah, and then when he's also able to give us the clarity or the answers that the committee is seeking, then we would get to know what the next line of action will be for the committee. In the meanwhile, though, while we wait to connect to Duke Mensah Opoku, let's listen to the conversation that went on between Alex Tobu, I should say, that is Lanchini Tobu, Peter Lanchini Tobu, and the COP in question.
Who is your immediate boss? Because until 16th of September, I don't see you in Mufti. I still regard you as my commissioner until 16th of September. Who is your immediate boss?
My immediate boss, as I speak now, is the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufo-Addo.
Yesterday, you made it clear to the committee that Dr. George Akufo-Addo, the Inspector General of Police, is not managing the police well. Have you ever had an opportunity to express this, either directly to him or at the police management board meeting?
Honorable member and honorable chair, several opportunities. And what I said yesterday, give me a chance today, I will say so again. He is not managing the police service well. And for me, For the 31 years that I've been in the service, I can tell you he's the worst IGP we've ever had in this country.
Please, hold on. Yesterday, we realized that if we are not careful, this will be a trial of the entire police service, which will have national security implications. Therefore,
all right, so you heard the voice of Pete. Why do I keep saying that? You heard the voice of Honorable Atachia, who is the chair of the ad hoc committee put together by the leadership of Parliament to probe the leaked audio, and which had 3 persons talking about the plot to take out the current IGP, Dr. George Akufu Dampare. They are alleged to be plotting to get the IGP out, and based on that, the audio has been subjected to some analysis, and they've been hauled before Parliament's committee to answer questions as to what exactly was the reasoning behind their conversation in the first place. So subsequent bulletins will give you details on that. You're still listening to 3FM 92.7. This is the Midday News. On to some other stories now. And 16 staff of the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital have flouted the disciplinary code of the hospital, and the disciplinary actions have been taken against them. One has been dismissed. According to the management, some offences committed by the affected staff include extortion and negligence of duty. Aside the dismissal, other staff have also been suspended for between 1 to 3 months without salaries. Very soon we'll be joined by Beatrice Piogabra, who is correspondent monitoring this for us. She is actually the capital of the Ashanti region, Kumasi, and has been trying to get to the bottom of what exactly has led to the dismissal of these staff of the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital. 16 of them, we are told, for various disciplinary actions. And she has joined us on the line for a quick update on this. Beatrice, good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Martin.
Tell us a bit more about the action taken against these 16 staff of the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital.
Okay, good afternoon. I would say that Professor Oshade Mensah is one of the new CEOs that was appointed just about 9 months ago. So when he came, he said that the vision of the hospital under his leadership was to make the hospital customer-oriented. So he's trying everything possible for patients to feel very comfortable when they visit Konfanochi Teaching Hospital to seek medical care. So as he and his management are trying to get infrastructure in place, equipment and machines in place, the machines will be used by staff. So if these staff are not disciplined, it means that his vision for the hospital would not come to pass. So these are some of the measures that he thinks that it will help other staff who go contrary to the code of the hospital to be cautious of any actions that they do. So some have been dismissed. In fact, one person has been dismissed, and it was in respect to extortion from some patients and also negligence on duty. So we can listen to the CEO, what he has been saying.
We have not taken for granted. One thing we have not toyed with is discipline in the hospital. And like I indicated, about 16 staff have been sanctioned. There's a dismissal. Some have been suspended for months without salaries. Some have been cautioned, and so on and so forth. And I think that is the way to go. But washing has come up a couple of times, and many others. Negligence of duty, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think that there are a couple of cases like that are being investigated. Ultimately, when the investigations are done, and you heard me say that the Quality Assurance Unit has been strengthened. The Quality Assurance Unit is largely responsible for many of these things. And so when issues like this are reported to management of the Quality Assurance Unit, committees are set up, and then recommendations are made, their findings are made known to management. Management takes a decision. In certain instances, what happens is that we forward the recommendations and the findings to a disciplinary committee, which is a committee of the board, and then the disciplinary committee takes a decision, makes recommendations to the board, and the board finally takes a decision as to what sanctions should be meted out.
Yeah, so Beatrice, that's the CEO of the hospital that you mentioned. So what's the next line of action? Are these staff members looking at asking for a review of the decision, maybe take on the hospital, you think?
not exactly that we know of immediately, but he said that there was a series of meetings and then actions, disciplinary actions that the offending staff were taking to. So most of them have affected the decision of the management of the hospital. So they are still going through the suspension, especially those who are on suspension between 1 month to 3 months without pay. They will come back, but within the months that they've been suspended for those acts that they committed, they will not be paid. So a lot of the staff are also happy about this decision that has been taken by the board of the hospital, because they feel that some bad nuts within the staff always do something that affects the image of the hospital, and even some staff who also perform their duties very well. So they believe that such actions would also help create a good image for the hospital.
Thank you very much, Beatrice Pio Gabra, with the latest update on some 16 staff of the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital who have been dismissed for various disciplinary infringements. A former Supreme Court judge, Professor Kofi Dartey, has stated that Ghana's legal education system needs remodeling. He made this assertion at the honorific lecture and award organized by the UPSA Law School to celebrate the works of the legal luminaries whose lives have positively impacted the legal landscape in Ghana. Manasseh Aprum was at the event where the Chief Justice of Ghana, Her Ladyship Justice Gertrude Tokonu, spoke at length about the legacies of Professor Dartey.
It was a celebration of a life of impact, having left traces of his remarkable personality and professionalism along all the paths he threaded. Professor Justice Samuel Kofi Dartey was honored with the event to signify an appreciation of the life he had lived and how much impact his works have had on Ghanaian jurisprudence. At the event were some high-profile personalities, including the Attorney General Godfrey Dame and several other justices from the Superior and Lower Courts of Ghana. The Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Justice Gertrude Tokonu, spoke passionately about the jurist, celebrating his impact across the world.
Justice Dartey taught and gave every act and effort to shaping principles of justice, order, and equity in every interaction. Justice Dartey has stood as a steadfast guardian of the seeming elusive concept of justice, with judgments characterized by meticulous research, eloquent reasoning, and a compassionate understanding of the human condition.
Professor Dartey urged Ghanaian lawyers to subscribe to the concept of functional jurisprudence.
Lawyers should approach legal phenomena with a functionalist orientation. Legal analysis should not be for its own sake, nor for admiring the law's symmetry or elegance, but should rather be for evaluating the law in terms of its effect on society, good or bad.
He further asserted that there was a need for Ghana to customize its legal education to its needs, calling for a remodeling of the legal education system.
The legal education system we now have is very much based on an English template, in that there is a phase of academic study of the law, followed by a professional phase. The foundation of the system was laid by Professor Lang, the first head of the Department of Law at the University College of the Gold Coast, which was established in 1958, but the first students were taken in 1959.
Professor Justice Kofi Dartey's career has spanned academic, legal advisory, and judicial roles at the national and international levels. He was a justice at the Supreme Court of Ghana from 2003 to 2013.
And here, that report put together by Manasseh Aprum. Meanwhile, retired Supreme Court Judge Justice William Atuguba has bemoaned the impact of corruption on the country and the lives of citizens. Justice Atuguba made these assertions during the interview at the honorific lecture and award organized by the UPSA Law School in honor of Professor Justice Samuel Dartey.
Look at the ministers. Are they technocrats? Are they the people running? But they will use politics to poison the system. The power belongs to the people, the educated people, must help the people to take charge of the country which belongs to them and benefit from it by putting in place real and practical institutions that will bring them benefit in their daily lives and not be playing tricks with a system I will call democratic, and it's an instrument for defrauding the people, impoverishing them, deepening the poison of partisan politics, further and further and further. Our life now is just you situate yourself politically and get what you can get from it. That is becoming our drive of life in this country.
That's the voice of retired Supreme Court Judge Justice William Ateguba. You're still listening to 3FM 92.7. This is the Midday News. Let's go on to one of our headline stories now. And the National Petroleum Authority, the NPA, is beginning its implementation of the National Cylinder Recirculation Model today. The policy involves the distribution of filled LPG cylinders at exchange points. Customers are required to pay for the content and pick up the filled cylinders. It aims to improve access and safety in distribution of LPG or liquefied petroleum gas. According to the NPA, the pilot rollout will take place in the Greater Accra and Ashanti regions. Previous attempts to reintroduce the module were unsuccessful, but the NPA is confident the policy has come to stay. Joining us on the phone lines now is Abbas Ibrahim Tasunti, who is the head of the NPA of petroleum pricing, the NPA. Mr. Abbas, good evening. Beg your pardon. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Martin.
Right. To start with, for the uninitiated or those who are probably hearing this for the first time, what exactly is the cylinder recirculation model?
Okay. So the cylinder recirculation model is the new mode of distribution of LPG, or specifically domestic LPG, which we buy in cylinders, where the LPG will be filled at bottling plants. And then these filled cylinders will be distributed at what we call exchange points. So as a consumer, when you come with your empty cylinder, you pick up an already filled cylinder and take it away. Whenever you are short of LPG, you just come and exchange for the new cylinder that has already been filled.
Are there specifications to the cylinders that will be used? For instance, if mine is metal, someone is using plastic, are there considerations as to which ones I can come and pick when I come with my empty cylinder?
Yes, so I'm sure you are aware that the majority of the cylinders in circulation are the metal, the steel cylinders. However, we have the fiber cylinders that are also in circulation. So the bottling plants through their LPG marketing companies are aware of this, and they will be making room for such fiber cylinders as well, so that customers who are using those fiber cylinders will also be able to exchange for those fiber cylinders. But from now that the policy has just started, the focus is on the steel cylinders, and the policy is running side by side with the existing mode of distribution of LPG for a period of 3 years before we transition fully to the CRM. So for those if the LPG marketing companies who are starting the CRM do not have the fiber cylinders, these consumers can fill their fiber cylinders from the retail outlets that are still running the old model until the fiber cylinders are available for the exchange.
Right. That also brings into question the old process where people go to a filling station and then fill their cylinders. I just heard you say that you'll be working with them. What has the agreement or partnership been like now that we are about to roll this out?
So that agreement is the fact that we'll be running the old model side by side, the CRM. The CRM, like I've explained, you just go, you exchange your old cylinder. But for the old model, you go with your old cylinder, your own cylinder, you fill it at the bottle, at the filling plant, and then you go away with it. So originally, previously, the idea was that we roll out the cylinder exchange point from the word go, so that no one will be allowed to fill cylinders at their outlets. But the consensus has been reached with the LPG marketing company is that we need a transition period. And that's how come it's been agreed between NPA and the LPG marketing companies that we run the two side by side. So the transition or the creation of cylinder exchange points, which will be the rule, which will be implementing the CRM, will be happening in the gradual process. It will be run through this 3-year period, after which everyone will move to the cylinder recirculation model.
Right, and two final questions before you take leave of us. Now that this is purely government run, now that government is undertaking this key role, what happens to the pricing? Would fuel prices still be, LPG prices still be the same across board?
I think I need to clarify that the sale of LPG and the marketing and distribution is not being done by government. It's still being done by the private sector. So the bottling plants are private sector businesses. Like I've mentioned, the distribution to the consumer is still going to be done by the LPG marketing companies. So we as a regulator are only playing that regulatory role of supervising and implementing the policy. So it's just a policy change, but government is not in charge of the sale of the product and pricing of the product. Prices are still deregulated, and therefore, as we speak, the LPG marketing companies will still be determining the prices. All
right. And finally, there's a concern. Was it safety? Is it purely on the back of safety that this decision or this particular model is being rolled out, where we've had concerns about explosions here and there?
Yes, safety is one of the considerations, but accessibility is also another major consideration. You are aware that if you are to build an LPG filling plant today, the cost of investing in such an outlet is quite high. And therefore, most of the investors or the private people have not built LPG filling plants in certain areas of the country. Because of this low lack of access to the LPG, most consumers are not using LPG. So you realize that LPG demand or consumption is concentrated in the urban areas where there's high demand, and therefore these are the places. Right. But with this, the cost of establishing the cylinder exchange point is very, very low, comparatively very low compared to what we have now. So it allows the LPG marketing companies to establish cylinder exchange points close to consumers, where they can have access. So the consideration is not just a safety one, but it's also one of access.
Thank you so much for the education and information you've just given us. Abbas Ibrahim Tasunti is the head of petroleum pricing at the NPA. On to some other news before we take leave of you. And political commentator Kwesi Pratt is encouraging the parliamentary minority not to be deterred by the police's attempt to halt their Occupy Bank of Ghana demonstration, in which they are demanding the resignation of the governor of the Bank of Ghana. Addressing the Arise Ghana forum on the collapse of the Bank of Ghana, he emphasized that attempts to suppress these protests will be unsuccessful.
This demonstration is being organized. No doubt. The police will go to court. This is not the first time they're going to court. They've always gone to court. So what do? What you do is to apply your gumption. You want to show that our people in their masses are fed up. They know that things are not going well. Do you want to do something beyond that? You want to send a signal that the people are not fools, they know the truth as well. Does it matter whether the police go to court or not? Do what they do, man. Do what they do. Every Ghanaian has a right to free expression. And no force on earth can stop that free expression. No force. It has never happened before, and it's not about to happen now. Free expression will be defended with our everything, including our lives.
And that is Kwesi Pratt, who has been speaking on the decision of the minority in Parliament to undertake a protest and occupy the Bank of Ghana premises. So that's it for the main bulletin. Business is right after this, but our main story this afternoon has been that the COP, George Alex Mensah, one of the police officers at the center of the alleged plot to oust the IGP, says George Akuffo Dampare, the current IGP, is the worst in the history of the country. My name is Martin Aseidu Dartey. Bismark is bringing us Business Now.
Hello, good afternoon. It's time now for Business Daily. Coming up, Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, describes as a true reflection on the grounds. Economist Intelligence Unit's report ranking Ghana as amongst 16 African countries with worsened operational risk.
All of us in Ghana know how difficult it is to get license, and to get approval and permit.
And unrelenting calls for the prosecution of Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, over alleged mismanagement. Details from a public forum held by the minority in Parliament. I am Bismark. Awusah will bring you details of these stories shortly. Thanks for your company. Now to our very first story. Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, has described Economist Intelligence Unit's report ranking Ghana as amongst 16 African countries with worsened operational risk as a true reflection on the grounds. According to the UK-based firm, the worsening scores were mainly driven by a deterioration in the macroeconomic risk subcategory. Speaking to 3 Business, Greater Accra chairman of AGI, Chonam Akpelo, stressed the need for authorities to improve the situation in the country.
The EIU report is a reflection of the realities that we have to deal with on a daily basis in the business community. Number one, take the legal system. The Ghanaian legal system for adjudicating matters, especially for businesses, takes very long to come to fruition. Businesses need not only quick, but fair legal environment to be able to have matters dealt with in a timely manner so they can continue to run their business. Secondly, there are issues that borders on regulation and securing regulatory certificates and approval. All of us in Ghana know how difficult it is to get license, and to get approval and permit.
Now, the minority in Parliament is unrelenting in its calls for the prosecution of the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, citing concerns over alleged mismanagement. The NDC members of Parliament are demanding accountability and transparency in the country's financial leadership. Noble Crosby Annan was at the forum and reports.
The minority is determined to continue the Occupy BOG protest on September 5 to pressure the Bank of Ghana governor, Dr. Ernest Addison, and his deputies to resign amid allegations of mismanagement. Despite concerns about public safety by the police, the minority remains steadfast in its course. Addressing a public forum on the theme, The Collapse of Bank of Ghana, a reflection of failed leadership, organized by Arise Ghana, Boko Central MP and Deputy Ranking Member of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, Muhammad Yariga, emphasized that resignations alone are not enough to address the collapse of the Bank of Ghana.
That any person who contravenes a provision of the Act has committed an offense, and upon summary conviction, the person is to suffer not less than 500 penalty units or not less than 2 years, no more than 2 years imprisonment. So the offense is clear. He hasn't denied it. The punishment is clearly defined. At any time in his life, he can be subjected to prosecution, whether this government does it or not. I mean, I demand that the Office of Special Prosecutor should look into the procurement issue.
Minority Leader Dr. Kaisla Tuforsing alleged that the Bank of Ghana mismanagement worsens extreme poverty, emphasizing urgency for change.
All of us should be worried because ultimately the Ghanaian taxpayer would be required to recapitalize the Bank of Ghana. Their reckless mismanagement of the central bank also resulted in the loss of 60.8 billion Ghana cedis, causing a negative equity of 55.1. We, the minority in Parliament, do not believe that those who caused the mess at the Bank of Ghana, Addison the printer and his 2 deputy printers, are capable of fixing this mess that they created themselves.
Adding his perspective, political commentator Kwesi Pratt Jr. raised concerns about the purported independence of the Bank of Ghana, calling into question its autonomy.
This is nonsense, absolute nonsense. of the independence of the Bank of Ghana and its governor and so on must be thrown into the waste paper basket, must be thrown into the dustbin. It has no relevance to our history.
While the police is seeking an injunction to prevent the protests, the minority remains optimistic that the legal efforts to halt their demonstration will be unsuccessful. Noble Crosby Annan, TV3 News, Accra.
And remember, this is still Business Daily with me, Bismark, Awusah. To some other story, the newly sworn-in president of the Institute of Internal Auditors Ghana is urging practitioners to ensure they live by their code of conduct and work to protect the scarce resources of businesses and the country as a whole. According to Joseph Dakura Zumazik, although the tax might be enormous, it can be surmounted by ensuring diligence in the line of work.
So, my name is Joseph Dakura Zumasige, President of the Institute of Internal Auditors Ghana, just sworn in today. So the new council, on taking over from the outgoing council, we admit that we have a huge task ahead of us because in the life of the Institute, so much has been achieved up to this point. We taking over this new council is committed to broadening our interaction or cooperation with other professional bodies in Ghana. And we take cognizance of the current challenging working environment or operational environment in the country. We acknowledge that everybody would admit that there are challenges, and that part of that has got to do with either failure of professionals to uphold the professional standards that are required, or people placed in positions of responsibility not upholding the higher ethical standards that are required of them.
Joseph Dakura is newly sworn-in president of the Institute of Internal Auditors Ghana. Before we go, the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies, GASAC, has come out with a number of strategic regulatory priorities aimed at reshaping the savings and loans and finance houses space in the country. GASAC is calling for the establishment of a common clearinghouse aimed at boosting efficiency and reducing risk within the specialized deposit-taking and non-bank financial institution market. Chenebo Akodi Abuache is the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies.
It is time for us to have a second look at the financial architecture of the non-bank sector in Ghana. We need to have dedicated service for all the non-banks in Ghana. We need to consolidate the gains in the sector. And one of the key things we think we can do to support the non-bank sector is a dedicated clearinghouse for all the non-bank sector, especially savings and loans and finance houses who serve in excess of 6 million clients, operates within all the 16 regions of the country, and also control an asset in excess of 9 billion Ghana cedi. And so it is time. It will help us to increase the rate at which we process our checks, also help with overnight lending, as well as helping each other player consolidate the gains we have in the space.
Chenebo Akodi Abuache, Executive Secretary of the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies, ending Business Daily. For more business stories, please log on to 3news.com. I am Bismark Awusah. Black Rasta is up next with Urban Blend.